Hello, I'm Rebecca of the Garden Gate Flower Company.
And I'm Grace of Grace Alexander Flowers.
And we've come together to create Stuart and Alexander Gather at the Garden Gate.
A podcast taking you behind the scenes of two gardens, what we've been up to, inside, outside, and out and about.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Grace. Been
Good.
a very, very busy week. I know we only spoke at the beginning of the week, but it's amazing what you can actually squeeze into a very short space of time. And we've still got another one day before the weekend.
We have. Is it because suddenly the sun's out and that means that it's all guns blazing, everything go? Or have you got other stuff going on?
I think it is. So we spoke a bit about the weather last week, or at the beginning of this week, whenever it was. And I think we've had two back-to-back quite dry days here in Cornwall. So I know I woke up to blue sky, which was just like amazing. But also, and I won't say annoyingly, but frustratingly, this is sort of the pitfalls of planning your diary early to speak to clients, brides, about the final details of the wedding, that it should fall. The day that I had an admin day, pre-planned, fell on another very nice day. So my poor brides, I was just saying, I've been up to the tunnel very early this morning, and it felt like a flipping workout because I used a post banger for about an hour and then couldn't type anything. So,
Post bangers! Aren't they
Yeah.
the best though? Aren't they the best? This is possibly the most niche conversation we will ever have. But yes, when I did the chestnuts big posts around my hazel fence, which is beautiful, we'll share some pictures. Yeah, the post rammer. It's brilliant.
I have to say, I think I've been doing it slightly wrong. I also had a lovely chap who came and put my tunnel up. And have you got a metal bar?
A metal bar. Now, do you mean
I'm
an
doing that.
auger or do you mean a post rammer?
Well, I don't know what it is, but he has this big, heavy metal bar with a spike on the end. This is getting very technical, isn't it? But actually what he did, because I watched him putting in posts, and he made a hole where the post wanted to be with this metal bar, first of all. Quite severe hole. And I've also often wondered why when I post bang in my posts, they're never straight. And this is why. Because actually, using the post banger is like the end part of having actually made the hole with the bar first.
I'm going to explain what a post banger is, a post rammer in my language. Just for those who don't know, it is like a tube of metal that is sealed at one end and it's got handles on it. And what you do is you put it over your fence post, like a very big hat, and then you use the handles to lift up this incredibly heavy piece of metal and you let it drop, or you ram it, depending on how strong you're feeling, onto the top of the post, and it drives the post into the ground. I always dig a hole for mine first.
Oh, there you
and
go.
I have to confess that when I did my chestnut posts, I did also have someone else with me who held it straight, so that when I rammed the post in with my post rammer, and then stopped every few seconds and said, "Is it straight?" and then carried on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who could think that? I mean, most ladies want diamonds, and we just want post bangers. So yeah, I mean, I was very thrilled. I got 10 of these posts in. So inside the tunnel, I was, because this is my inside. My inside this week. Well, actually, no, that's not. My inside is actually my greenhouse. So I'm actually going to hold on to that. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to tell you about that because I'll let you go first about your inside. Otherwise, it's not very well segued.
So I have actually, despite the fact that it's been super sunny outside, I have spent a lot of the last few days inside because I have been going wild on the sewing. Absolutely wild. And still, even though it is really quite nice outside, everything is inside. So if I could give anyone any tip ever about anything, but let's assume it's about seed sowing because that is really my area of expertise, I would share the warm and dark germination, cool and light growing on. So the tippest that anyone's ever given me is what seeds need to germinate and what they need to grow on is not the same thing. So now I start everything in the warmth of inside, and as soon as I see a shoot, everything's out.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so I now have pretty much 2 rooms of my house.
Your poor husband.
He's been away this week. He's going to come back tomorrow night and he's not going to know quite what happened to the house he left behind.
Yeah.
He's just covered in heat mats, heater propagators. There are seed trays everywhere. Because it also means that you can get a lot of seed into one seed tray, because actually as soon as they're up, you're pricking them out and pricking them on. Yeah. If I had a second tip to give anyone, it would be prick out sooner than you ever imagined possible. Credit to Charles Dowding for both of these tips, by the way. I cannot take credit.
Yeah, so well, mine is the same. You've stolen my inn. My inn was in the greenhouse. Unfortunately, in my house, there's too many people running around and four-legged friends. I've got this lovely old Victorian cottage, but actually there's no really deep windowsills, which is really annoying, because I sort of dream, when I go to people's houses and they have these deep windowsills, I'm always really envious, because they're like perfect seed tray depth, but mine are not. Yeah. No, mine are not.
What I do now is I sort of, unless it's for salad leaves or little things that I just want to grow on in the house, I ignore the fact that I do have incredibly deep windowsills, but I have tiny windows.
Yeah.
And I germinate in just the dark of the room.
Well, that is a really good point, isn't it? What you're saying is you're not worried about the light whatsoever. So my little greenhouse is very, well, emphasis on the little, it is tiny, absolutely tiny. Although it is, a section of it is south-facing, it's an unusual shape. I designed it actually, but it's a very unusual shape, because most greenhouses obviously have glass all the way around. This just has glass doors, a glass window and a glass roof, but either side it's flanked by a cabin and a shed. So it's quite unusual. It sits in the middle of a elongated building. But again, a bit like you, everything germinates very quickly in there, so either on heat and that sort of thing. And then I'm the same. I prick things out very quickly and get them into cell trays as quickly as possible. Yeah. So at the moment, my entire, I feel like I'm checking on them like babies every few hours, really, almost. But I'm growing I'm growing a variety of things. Obviously, a little and often is my motto. So again, my top tip is
advice.
Yeah, my top tip is do not sow everything. Do little and often, because you will actually get a little bit of staggered. I know stuff does actually catch up, but it also gives you that opportunity that actually, as I found, I can't find the slug, but there is definitely somewhere a slug inside my greenhouse, which was happily munching on a whole load of the straw flowers, little seedlings. So they've been all pricked out, and this week, though later this week, possibly over the weekend, I will be starting off some zinnias, which is still quite early, I would say.
It is early.
But again, little and often. I shall do a little tray of them and see how they go. And then, if it doesn't look really good, then I'll wait another week, sort of thing.
I think we are due a little bit of a chill.
Yes.
But nothing too worrying.
No,
so I'm also checking. I think, I'm not even going to pretend it's not every hour. It is pretty much every hour. And actually, I've often talked about how I'm really uncomfortable with this whole thing about gardening being great for your mental health, because at the moment what I'm checking every hour is lots and lots of very, very empty seed trays, wondering what happened to my Aquilegia that I'm sure I put about 6 weeks ago and still isn't up. But if you need a boost, if you are just in need of a bit of a cheering up this week, I'm going to suggest put some Cosmos in. 24 hours and that Cosmos was up, and it was just, I love it.
It's amazing.
Love it.
I thought I maybe tried it too early, because I looked at my calendar from last year and I thought, probably a week earlier. But what I would say, in my garden, everything is very early. Very, very early indeed. I've got tulips out, properly in bloom, blown. So that's why I started the Cosmos when I did. But you're right, I literally lifted off the top of the lid of the seed tray and almost gasped. I was like, was not expecting you. So yeah, that's been quite good as well. We're in a similar situation down here. Outside, my out is, I've got two things. One, I've got to tell you, because obviously you are the seed queen and you'll love this. I have a sweet pea flowering.
No, what?
Well, I'm putting it down to stress. It can only be stressed, which I don't think one should be bragging about having a sweet pea out at this time, quite frankly, because most of any grower that's listening to me will be like, oh, well, Becca's just failed.
You've been so cruel to a sweet pea. It's flowered as a sign of repentance.
Yeah. Well, welcome to autumn sown sweet peas that have probably been lacked of light, I think. But I think in the podcast we've just done, I talked about the fact that they had got planted out, and I'm not worrying about them, but managed to see a flower. So there you go. I cannot believe it.
What variety? Is it one of... Because I grew
Piggy,
Green and
what's
Gorgeous.
it called? Piggy
Sue.
Piggy
You've got
Sue.
a Piggy Sue.
I've got a Piggy Sue flowering.
You've
Yeah.
got a Piggy Sue. You have won the earliest Piggy Sue of 2024.
I'm going to have to photograph it now and put it on my Instagram just to prove it. I nearly did it before I came in, and I thought, oh no, I'll tell her about it first. She'll be aghast. But,
well, I assumed it would be one of the really early flowering varieties. So I grew some Green and Gorgeous ones, the very early... can't remember what they're called now. They're called something like the early flowering ones, which is helpful. And they were super early. I did put them in the greenhouse. They just grew in a massive tub. But I haven't done them this year.
I mean, I think I'm going to have to change it up this year. I mean, I can't believe I'm thinking about autumn sown before I've even done the season. But my initial thoughts on the autumn sown sweet peas is that you have to be really considered about where you're storing these things over winter with the light. And what I would say is my greenhouse doesn't get enough light, hence the fact that these have got very leggy. There's this whole to pinch or not to pinch. And I was listening to a gardening programme yesterday, if in doubt, pinch it out. I've had also a very severe other side of the spectrum of people which say you never pitch out autumn sown sweet peas because climate will naturally pinch them anyway. So I've kind of done a bit of both and probably not remember which one's which, but they're definitely lacking in looking very lush. But if you, as quite a lot of us know, some of that autumn grown stuff, you put it out looking quite sick, and then within a few weeks it sort of bounces back and you're still ahead of the game a bit.
Yeah, I think there's a metaphor for life there somewhere, isn't there?
Probably, yeah, most probably. So my out is my sweet pea that is out, but also that I have been out up at the land, using that post banger. So I'm going for a bit of a crossover this week.
Well, at this time, I don't think there should be too much in, should there? You should be out and about making the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is that slightly funny season, like you said. You can get very gung ho and put a lot of stuff outside and get a little bit caught out. I mean, Cornwall is where I am is very mild, and looking at the long-term forecast, we're okay. Sweet peas will be fine anyway. Cornflowers are fine. Dorcas fine. Annie fine. They're about the only things that are out. I have got some really good scabious, autumn sown scabious actually, which I did plant out this morning, and they're looking really nice. They're Black Knight. Black Knight? Yeah, they are Black Knight. Yeah, the dark ones.
Yeah.
I do need to seriously get my game face on for slug, for pests, though, at the land. There is a serious slug issue up there.
Yeah, some really beautiful snowdrops, which I posted on a story, and I did a little poll about how much people thought I'd paid for them, and I'm too embarrassed to repeat how much I'd paid for 4 snowdrops from East Lambrook Manor. But yeah, it was enough for me to care a lot about what happens to them. And 2 of them are just being... I think there's a slug underneath the pot that every night comes out and takes another massive bite out of my lovely snowdrop foliage. So I need to get them in the ground.
I mean, I have a bit of an issue at the cottage garden where I live because we've got walls. So, I'm sort of... Yeah, there's like an army of them. But it's the little tiny ones that you don't see very much. They seem to be so disruptive. And I've tried these the wool pellets, which I put them around the sweet peas, and they actually do look fine. They look all right. So I might be going and getting like a wholesale job lot of those.
Load of fleeces.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, go and hang around with all the young farmers. Yeah, exactly, and see if I can go and get some.
I could tell you some stories about sheep shearers that clearly have.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that I might be able to grab some of that, because that wool stuff has definitely got a real strong pungent smell of lanolin, definitely. So it must be something to do with that, which is pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's the texture as well. I've got a couple of pots that I just really need to protect, because stuff is being eaten as fast as it's growing, so you don't know if it's actually doing anything, and then you realise that it's putting out growth as fast as it can, but it's not going anywhere because it's just being taken off. So I'm going to use some brambles, I think, to just try and keep them off certain plants. The slug is never going to climb over a bramble, is it?
Oh, interesting. What do you think, Jo? You think it will reroot itself if you...
I'll do some pictures, because I think I have a bit of a plan. This is mostly because I was so excited about getting ducks, so excited, and I thought this was going to be the solution to everything. Unfortunately, the ducks have had to go on hold for a little while, so I'm coming up with other... I lie in bed thinking about how to wage war on slugs.
Oh my goodness, the ducks. If you haven't seen it, you've got to go and watch it. Have you watched Florette's duck movie? on YouTube?
I haven't.
Oh my
I haven't.
goodness.
I have got the email, and I thought if I watch that, I'm just going to die of envy.
Yeah, you
but
are.
I will.
You are. You are. I mean, the only thing really that refrains me from not getting ducks is the duck poo. We have quite a small garden, and one duck could make a lot of mess.
Very, 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 very messy, apparently.
Yeah.
But I think I've got enough room, and especially if they eat the grass for me, I'm quite keen on the mowing variety.
Yeah, you've got the perfect setup for ducks. Definitely. I think it's lovely. I just want the Indian runners just because I think they look amazing. I want them for. I want them really for the aesthetic look, not for the.
Well, I'm going for apricot call ducks, I think.
Oh my goodness, it just sounds good.
Also the aesthetic decision, but not a runner duck.
They've got to fit in with the branding.
They've got to fit the branding. I know. Everything fits with the branding except one spaniel who's completely the wrong colour. And I'm
well, you've got to have a gate crasher. It's fine.
But he's the only one that poses, so he appears in more of my photography than anyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, well, not a plug, but a plug. I did interview Claire Bowen of Honeysuckle and Hilda a little while ago about ducks, so I just asked her all the duck questions that I could think of, and that'll be in Gather in a few weeks' time. But I do feel a bit of a fraud, because at the time I was absolutely committed that ducks were literally imminent, but I have had to put it on hold just because of busyness, and I have got the perfect setup for them, and I'm very excited, but I just worry that if I'm not around a lot in the day at the moment, I want them to be cooped up too much. So to make sure that I've planned so I can be around in the day and let them out. And
it's a bit like the first few days of having a puppy. You probably want to be around for the start, don't you?
then I think that there is a business idea in I'm going to be like rent a duck. So I'm going to have like ducks that are trained to go into a crate, and then I could load them up into my Land Rover, drive them around to people's gardens, and you can pay them by the hour to just come and like completely blitz your garden of slugs, and then I drive them away again.
My mum had chickens, and we had quite a big pen run for them, so they were free where they were, but then we'd bring them in like a day pen, and we would literally move it along the grass path. And do you know what? We never had slug issues, because they literally went down that. It's that part where the grass reaches the side of a lovely soil bed, and then there's just a little sort of no man's land, and then the flowers begin. And they all, if you do any weeding and you cut back that grass, they're all just in that area, aren't they? Yeah. So, and the chickens, we just hung it over, and the chickens were able to just, feed to their heart's content. So we did manage it. We didn't have ducks, obviously, we had chickens, but we did manage it quite well, and it was brilliant. I think if you can introduce them, it's really good.
I think chickens would be lots easier for lots and lots and lots of different reasons, and lots of people have said if you have a garden, chickens will trash stuff, whereas ducks won't. They'll trash where they've got water. I
wouldn't have let the chickens in. Emily's got chickens. Theirs are kept away from the flower garden, though, I have to say. She keeps hers away. I wonder whether she brings them in every once in a while, but I think when they have got in, they tend to sort of try and scratch around and make a bed in the polytunnel on top of something.
But I feel like I'm going to train mine to be like literally like a slug squadron, so that even in the greenhouse I could just open the door, put 2 ducks in the greenhouse, leave them for half an hour, and they would just sort of clean the greenhouse, and then
love it.
Because I've also got something in the greenhouse. Touch wood, I'm touching everything I can find. They haven't eaten much yet, but there are little silver trails over everything.
They have definitely woken up. The weeds have woken up, and the slugs have woken up. And that's what I've noticed since I last spoke to you. I definitely have seen a difference.
Although on the upside, I feel like I've woken up too, actually. A bit of sunshine does me the world of good.
Well, absolutely. And you will be very pleased. As soon as I realised that we were going to be doing another podcast, I got out. Gasp. I mean, this is.
I don't think we're ever actually going to publish any of this. It's just going to be a project in,
getting Becca out,
re-socialising Becca.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, I'm really traumatised by this. It's literally in my weekly diary now. Where is Becca going to go? That involves leaving the house further than 5 miles or something, and even that's challenging. But as if anyone knows the geography of near where I live. They will know I didn't go very far, but I did go to Lanhydrock National Trust.
Nice.
Because we spoke about the magnolias, and they came quite early here in Cornwall. And
they
actually,
caught me out completely.
Well, they catch everybody out, and I don't know what it is really, but they were early. Like I said to you, everything's pretty early this year. And then we did have a frost, and I think I noticed quite a few of the houses around here, They got caught. There's a beautiful one on my mum's drive that's a lemon yellow. Oh, it's so beautiful. It is stunning, absolutely stunning. But it got caught by the frost just before it came out. I was gutted for them. I mean, I almost wanted to knock on their door and go, I bought you a bouquet of flowers because I feel sorry for you. Because it's a once a year thing, isn't it? It's just such a curse. And it so often happens to that particular variety as well. It's obviously, as we know, anything that's just a little bit super special also is always super vulnerable. So anyway, I went off to Lanhydrock, rang Mother, said to Mum, got to go out, got to do something. So we went on Ladies' Walk, which if you've ever done the Lanhydrock National Trust, is absolutely beautiful because you can't take dogs obviously into the garden, and a bit like you, I cannot go on a walk like that and not take the dog. So we walked down through past the front of the house, and it is stunning. I think they're yew trees.
But it looks like a chess set, doesn't it?
Do you know what? That's exactly what I think it looks like. Something out of Alice in Wonderland, slightly mad chessboard. So we walked down, and I managed to get a couple of pictures of the house without a million people, because Lanhydrock's become so popular now. They come in literally coach loads, mainly because they've got a good cafe now at the top in the car park. It's all very accessible to people, just off the A30. Very, very popular. But anyway, absolutely stunning. So we walked past the droves of people and up into behind the house, and just on the edges of the garden, the formal gardens at the back. Have to say, saw nobody on this beautiful walk. Seeing the magnolias.
So going past the house and then hooking up round the right.
So yeah, if you're standing with your back to the house, looking down the valley, you head right, and you go out towards the right hand side, and it takes you into the woods. It's a beautiful walk. Ladies' Walk actually comes back up through. It is the sort of the loop walk that then takes you down to Resbryn, down to the river at the bottom. So you climb up, but there was nobody, absolutely nobody. And apart from the gasps of absolutely stunning rhododendrons, which one of them was again this like primrose, slightly acidy yellow, which is not obviously a major favourite colour of mine, but you couldn't help but literally be floored by its sort of size and beauty. Is just, it sort of fits the size of the house, and it's like bonkers size of the yew trees. Just looked amazing. And then just caught the end of the magnolias, definitely the end. But as you get to the very top and it levels out, you get to the gardener's cottage, which, I mean, I literally would have died and gone to heaven if somebody had let me live in a gardener's cottage of that size. It is beautiful. And the one bit that caught my eye, and I do laugh about this, it is the wrought iron gating. I really thought of you. I thought, I think if Grace was here, she'd really appreciate this. So there was like this amazing walled garden, which then had a really big gap before the house. And they've obviously put in this really beautiful, I presume it must be fairly original, wrought iron railings, gate. But the gate actually opens inside the railing. So it's just this great big sort of fence of railing with a gate that's black wrought iron railings as well. I put it on my Instagram, but it was just so beautiful. And I've never really been drawn to metalwork like that. I'm much more of a, let's cut some hazel down and make, I think of your lovely gates and stuff, it's really natural. Yeah. But do you know what? I had a real moment where I thought this is architecturally really beautiful. Don't have a house that's big enough to have that sort of opening. But it just looked amazing. Looked amazing.
And I know exactly where you were, because hilariously, going back to the theme of trying to get Becca out of Cornwall, once a year Grace goes to Becca, and we have our week in Cornwall, and we've started coming to Foy, so very close to you. And actually last June, July, can't remember now. The last thing we did before we left Cornwall was we did a good long dog walk before we had packed everything up in the car, and we did exactly that walk around Lanhydrock, and it was stunning. Yeah, and there was a vintage Land Rover parked outside the gardener's cottage, so it had like triple points from me.
Oh God, it was lovely. It's lovely.
It's such a beautiful setting.
And it's funny really, because you walk along there and actually you can look across the Duchy Nursery as well, so you can see one of my tunnels that I've got over at the Duchy Nursery. So it's hilarious from looking over. But then you drop down and you can walk all along the river at the bottom. So Mabel, myself and Mother loved it. We really enjoyed it. So it's well worth, if you're coming down to Cornwall, it is so easy to come off at Bodmin. and it's really accessible. Definitely try and get off the beaten track a little bit.
Yeah, so we did exactly that, although I'm still not sure whether or not we went right as far around as you did. But yes, we walked up through the rhododendrons, through that wooded bit, down to the river. And then we walked up the big drive that heads back towards the house, which was stunning as well. It just that proper parkland that rolls. It's glorious.
And you go up the main drive and it's fabulous. I mean, I can almost imagine sort of back in ye old time getting on a horse and riding up that way would have been rather a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's good. It's good cantering country, that.
Oh, definitely. Well, they used to have the horse trials there, I must admit, when I was growing up. That used to be where the 3-day eventing used to be.
Oh, I haven't been to a 3-day event for a very, 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 very long time. But I'm not that far from badminton, but it's such a crush. I'm probably never going to go to badminton again.
Oh, so, bless you. So what have you been up to? Trying to top that?
No. It's the short answer. There's absolutely no way I'm going to top that. And we're definitely. I'm hoping that my outs are going to be bringing the glamour and the sparkle to this podcast. But this week's is absolutely not that. But I thought it might be interesting just to chat about anyway. So last night I had to rush home from work a bit, rush the dogs around the backfield, and then rush out again for my village parish council meeting.
Oh, I love that.
Which is not usually the most exciting thing that I've done in a week. But it was a big turnout this week because we're talking about our village pub, which has been closed for a long time, is being sold off to it's like a novel, this. We have got a villain. There is a villain property developer who bought the pub a while ago, despite all of our efforts, has refused to sell it to anyone reasonable and just keeps upping the price so that no one can afford it, basically. And it's falling down and it's incredibly sad. Yes, so it was a proper village event of lots of people coming and standing up with clipboards and making impassioned speeches. And
would the community like to buy it to run it as like a community pub?
So no, I mean, we have talked about it endlessly. There's some very boring specifics around. We've registered it as an asset of community value, which means that we would get an opportunity to buy it and run it as a pub, but it's a derelict building now because it's been left to just rot, so it would take so much money to get it back to where it needs to be, and the price of it is now £500,000. So somebody said, should we make sure the local paper's there so they can document our views? And I was like, well, I don't think it's going to be quite that exciting. What we really need is someone with £1 million to walk in and say, I'm going to buy it. And then we'll all cheer, in which case we need a film crew, not the local Gazette.
It is like something you'd imagine hearing on Netflix, isn't it?
Except this is real life and not Netflix. So it was one of those sorts of, well, this is just really sad, but there's not a lot we can do about it.
And I think nowadays the pub, it is really hard. Obviously in Cornwall we've got loads of them here, and even in my own town we've got a number of pubs. I think there's 7 pubs in our town. It's a lot for the size of our town, and it's really hard for them each to stand individual, I suppose. But yeah, it's a bit of a heart of a town, really, isn't it, or a village?
Well, we haven't had it for a long time, but there is definitely a sense of something will be lost when it finally is turned into flats or houses. The application that's been put in is for a holiday let, which has obviously got all sorts of implications. But I guess it was just, first of all, if you care about your community and your countryside, please do consider being part of your local parish council. But also, yeah, it's just something that I wanted to mark, that I'm never going to be able to go out to our local village pub now. And that's really sad, especially if you live in the countryside like we do. But there isn't anything within walking distance of
where you are. It's when the post office goes. I mean, we've had the same. We've had the post office go, and we've had the banks have gone. And we're a very small town. It did pack a big punch, actually, Lostwithiel did. When something's gone, like you said, once it's gone, it very, very rarely comes back again, which is really sad. And I think that's the point, isn't it? Is that once it's gone, it's gone. So if you're absolutely sure, that's the decision then made. But equally, on the flip side, I've seen actually in Cornwall, certainly, quite a few pubs doing really, really well with really great young chefs and things like that. And they've, it must be hard work for them, but they've made almost those places destination places because the pub is so good. You need to find a chef. I mean, it'd be really great to get a good chef in. That's what we need.
My husband has not threatened divorce many times in our marriage, But when I said, "Oh, I'd love to run a pub,"
Ah.
was one of the times he did. I would love to run a pub.
Would you like to run one with Andy? Because Andy did the same thing with me. When we moved back down to Cornwall, that's what he wanted. And funny enough, he wanted Where I Met You in Galand. That was up for sale when we both moved back to Cornwall, and he wanted to buy that pub. And I think my conversation was probably very similar to your household, which was no. Thank you, darling. I don't. I mean, I love a parish council meeting. It's always, well, I say I love a parish council meeting. I've had to sit in on a few. But if I'm raising my out game, you need to do the same, I think, Grace.
Well, I am next week. It's because you didn't give me a lot of time. And I only had so many evenings to do anything. The next podcast that we record, I will have been to Polly Nicholson's book launch.
Oh, yeah.
And you can eat your words, because I will be dazzling glamour.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is nice. I mean, what something where you go out and dress up for, that's double bubble.
Yes. Yeah. It is a weeknight, and I do have to drive. Yes, so the very glitzy, celeb-filled party is happening tonight. So good luck, Polly. But yeah, so I'm going to the bookshop launch, which is next Thursday. So yeah, so we have to time the podcast around that so I can talk about it.
Okay, so basically we cannot record the next podcast until Polly's had.
I'm really busy for the next 7 days.
Yeah. That's why you're busy, because you can't fit anything else in before that. Well, that's okay. Well, that gives me an opportunity to put something other than basically going to a sauna or going for a dog walk in my diary, which is about as exciting as it gets at the moment here in Cornwall, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it has to be something you put a frock on for.
Oh my goodness. Well, I do have a birthday coming up, so you never know. Between now and the next podcast, it is my birthday, so
never know what's going to arrive in the post for your birthday.
Oh, that's quite exciting. Better hurry up. Better hurry up.
It went first class yesterday. It'll be there, don't worry.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Grace. Oh, well, it's lovely catching up with you.
You too.
Yeah. We'll have a catch up next week on our next podcast.
Yeah, I think there's just enough time for me to go out and do a few more jobs in the garden before it's time to walk the dogs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, literally I'm making the most of every second of this.
Outside.
Yeah. This weather. Can't wait.
Well, I'm going to go and do exactly the same. Take care, Grace. Bye.